The European Union has rejected Iran's accusations that the Western media helped engineer post-election unrest as protests in Tehran continue. The BBC and the Voice of America radio station have been harshly criticised by Iranian officials who accuse the broadcasters of fueling violence after the disputed re-election of President Ahmadinejad. While Western media broadcasts have been restricted in the country, popular web services including Facebook, Google and Twitter have opened services now in Persian, the main language of the country. A columnist and a former assistant secretary to the US Treasury in the Reagan administration, Craig Roberts, has put his bit in as well. He says it's all part of a major destabilization plan ordered by the US.
The CIA has been conducting a destabilization plan within Iran for the last 2 years. This is well known. It's been widely reported in the American and the British press, and we are seeing the fruits of an orchestrated protest that takes advantage of the youth in Tehran.
Craig Roberts there. Well, let's get a bit more on this now. What is the real story behind the media in Iran? Let's bring in Wayne Madsen, investigative journalist and RT contributor. Mr. Madsen, hi there. Now, the attention to the Western media has been paying to these elections, as we've seen on so many channels, apparently unprecedented. Amateur videos from the country are flooding internet websites like YouTube. But is it all really putting pressure on Iran?
Well, I don't think so, and I think what we have to worry about is the blowback effect. We already see Iran now limiting internet access, what's known as a technology blockade, which has the opposite effect of what many of these outside Western influence may have wanted to see. I do believe that there's a tendency now to take advantage of what is an internal problem with the present Iranian government between the Expediency Council and the Assembly of Experts, which is influenced by Rafsanjani, who supported Mousavi, the opposition candidate, and the Guardian Council of the Supreme Ayatollah Khamenei. But there's these outside influences that are trying to make the best or the worst, in this case, of a situation that should best be left to the Iranian government and the opposition to handle. I would note that President Obama is under immense pressure here to get more actively involved, but as yet he's not succumbing to this neoconservative pressure, most of it coming from the Republicans in Congress.
I want to explore this conspiracy theory with you a little more. Kenneth Timmerman, head of the US-based Foundation for Democracy in Iran, described a green revolution on his website that the day before the election. The description now, of course, being adopted to describe the protests in Iran. Do you think that suggests anything suspicious?
Absolutely. When we hear things like the Green Revolution and the Twitter Revolution, the Twitter Revolution, of course, was tried in Moldova and failed as a result of their recent election. This has all the markings of the Open Society Institute, of George Soros, and also the National Endowment for Democracy, where George Bush funneled about $400 million into this operation to influence the opposition movement against the Iranian government. So anytime you hear these themed revolutions, again, it's George Soros, the Open Society Institute, which promotes civil society, but in fact it really, as we see in the streets of Tehran, it promotes civil strife.
Some commentators, of course, seeing similarities between the so-called Green Mousavi opposition in Iran and those coloured revolutions, as they were called, of post-Soviet countries like, for instance, Ukraine and Georgia. What's your view on that one?
Well, certainly we see some of the same hallmarks in Tehran today with what we saw in Ukraine and Georgia and these other themed revolutions. Again, that's something that Soros and the affiliated National Endowment for Democracy. I would also note that CNN here in Washington yesterday, Wolf Blitzer, who's very much associated with people like Mr. Timmerman, who called for a green revolution the day before the election, we saw that CNN really had trouble prying itself away from coverage of the demonstrations in Tehran to cover what was a terrible metro train accident here in Washington. So you have to also ask, what is the motivation behind all this intense coverage by CNN and MSNBC and Fox News? It seems like there is a coordinated and concerted effort to try to stir things up using the Western media.
It's interesting to hear your thoughts there. Wayne Madsen, thanks for joining us today from Washington.